Well, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey, everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Palantir, monthly chart. Big giant green candle for November. Everybody's scared to buy in. Some people may be wanting to FOMO in, but a lot of people are really scared. A lot of people taking profits. A lot of people don't really know what to really make out of this big giant green candle here for November. It just looks a little bit like a blow off top, but at least a lot of people are kind of looking into that. I'm gonna kind of share my 2 cents. I think there's gonna be probably a lot of bullish continuation. I'm gonna go through different scenarios to where I think we are at the bullish cycle, how far Palantir could potentially go. Are there anything else that we've seen that looks very similar to this, and how did they end up, right? Trying to figure out patterns, try to figure out where things might go moving forward. Now, before I get into it, I just want to kind of share with you kind of my background as a Palantir analyst. I have been following this stock for a very long time. I've really been buying since like the DPO. At that, like in 2020, I didn't really do too much technical analysis, but I really started doing a lot of technical analysis starting around 2022. And this is one of those drawings that I did in 2022, which is basically just look at a pattern here. It looks like there's a little bit of a inverted fractal here. And I thought that, hey, you got a little bit of a head and shoulder here, got a downtrend here, make some lows down here, made a channel up here. It's probably not going to just go straight up because it looks like exactly what it did over here. So I just ended up drawing a fractal here with a little bit of a inverted head and shoulder here. Sure enough, it played out about a year and a half later, and then price went up a lot higher, right? I basically saw this pattern. This is like a little bit more in detail in terms of what I thought back in July of 2022. And I thought that, hey, $30, $35 in about 2 years from July 2022. Ultimately, it worked out. It actually went a lot higher now that we're towards the end of 2024. And you remember back in, I think around like July to August to September to October, a lot of people have seen this head and shoulder pattern, thinking that it's going to go down because we just kind of went way overextended. I was probably one of the few that was basically making a statement that, hey, I don't think this is a head and shoulder. Like, this looks like a inverted head and shoulder didn't work out. Trend is up. You're making for the most part higher highs, higher lows. It's a very, very significant change in character. I think you're going to end up having a head and shoulder continuation pattern. And sure enough, this has worked out, right? And also, was basically making a case that everybody's calling head and shoulder. I really thought that it was just kind of stuck in a range. I drew a bullish case, base case, and a bearish case. And price action basically just worked out exactly how I thought it would be on the base case. And this is back in like July 2023, December 2023 or so, right? I've also just a couple months ago, around September 13th, I was one of the few that were really saying, hey, Palantir was a surprise. It was like 35. Yeah, it looked overextended back then. Sure, it could drop down to like 30 or lower. I don't care. I'm not selling. I don't think it's guaranteed, right? I think it could be hitting some escape velocity here. Monthly chart line up with previous Bitcoin bull cycle. And whenever you have Bollinger Band expansion like that, things can just keep going up for a very, very long time, right? Price was $35 back then. Currently, how much is Palantir right now? $65.77. It has hit escape velocity, just as I imagined. Now, it's really difficult to look at a regular chart here. Like on a linear scale, you really want to look at a logarithmic chart because that really tells you a little bit more detail in terms of what the stock behavior is really looking like, especially for something that's like exponentially going downwards and exponentially going upwards like this. You really want to see the acceleration and deceleration based on log scale. It really gives you a much better picture in terms of what's happening. Now, I'm just going to slap the Bollinger Band here. Do we have an issue? Well, yes, we have an issue. It's the price currently like way outside the upper Bollinger Band. The upper Bollinger Band is $48.74. Right now, currently price is like almost 15, 20 bucks higher than that, right? Are we overextended? Heck yeah, we're overextended. Can things get overextended for a very long time? Yes, it can, right? I don't think that we're topping. If anything, I think that we're going to have a lot more bullish continuation moving forward. But that doesn't mean that I'm thinking it's going to be another few green candles like this and all the way just goes up to 1,000, right? No, I think that you're going to have a lot of really crazy volatility that's going to whip a lot of people out. I'm going to show you some fractals in terms of what other stocks that have a very, very similar trajectory, very similar Fibonacci levels that is hit in terms of what they end up doing. It's very, very important to put into context here because I don't think we are at the top, and it's very, very important to visualize this. And some people might even look at the monthly RSI and say, oh, the monthly RSI is already up like into the mid 80s. That's unsustainable. Well, yes, it is sustainable actually. There are a couple things to kind of look at, right? First of all, I just wanted you to look at, before I move into other stocks, I just want to look at what's happening. Over here, last few months, upper Bollinger Band is expanding very, very nicely. The lower Bollinger Band initially was contracting here a little bit, and then after these few, like 3 or 4 months of green candles, it started to expand, right? And when I was seeing this expansion, I was like, oh, the bull trend probably just got started here, right? And sure enough, the bull trend just seemed like it just got started over here. Right now, with this month and last month's candle, with last month's candle, the lower Bollinger Band came down to here, right? With this month's candle, with price just kind of going up like this, where's the lower Bollinger Band right now? It's all the way down in the negatives. It's all the way down here. It hasn't even shown any kind of signs of this slowing down. It's expanding the lower Bollinger Band like crazy, right? So I'm just going to give you another example of another very parabolic stock that y'all are aware of. First of all, Nvidia, right? Let's look at Nvidia. What did this cycle? When RSI gets up to the 80s, does that mean that you're going to experience a top? No. Like you can keep on being in the 80s for a very long time. Nvidia also has these previous cycles where it's been in the 80s for like a year and a half here. And Nvidia over here has been on the 80s for almost like two years over here, right? So just because RSI is up in the 80s doesn't necessarily mean that the stock has to crash. It could end up just keep going up a lot higher. Eventually it would crash, but the price would end up going a lot higher after that, right? So what we're experiencing here is maybe, Palantir's just got into the 80s, and it could still have a ways to go, right? That's not an argument for it to stop going up. And also another thing too, like, can you have a candle that's just way outside the upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly, and price just keeps on going up? Yes, you can. You can have these like 4 crazy candles over here, with this one just almost like way outside upper Bollinger Band, and then the bull market continues for another 2 years, and you continue to have these multiple monthly candles that are like way above the upper Bollinger Band until it got exhausted, right? Here, big giant green candle, we got punished for it over here for about 7 months sideways, but it kept on making another 3x after that. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's ending. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, right? So just because RSI is overheated, just because it's overextended about the upper Bollinger Band, doesn't mean that the top is here. Actually, matter of fact, far from it. Because if you look at every single top, if you look at the last few cycles, first of all, blow-off tops don't happen very often. Most tops are actually not blow-off tops. Most tops are actually a little bit more like rounded, exhaustive tops. And most tops actually give you a little bit of a glimpse here in terms of what's happening. If you look at the loss scale, you can see that trend is starting to kind of round over here, kind of get a little bit exhausted here. And RSI is actually got bearish divergence down here, right? RSI goes down, price goes up, trend's exhausting, right? Another way to tell why trend's exhausting, just look at the Bollinger Band. It was initially all the way down here into the floor, and you can see the Bollinger Band is really started to contract a lot more. And as soon as the Bollinger Band contracts a lot more and gets back to, from like all the way down to the ground to the floor here, you can see the trend is really starting to exhaust, right? Same thing here, Bollinger Band down, and whenever it starts to come back up, that's when the trend really starting to exhaust. It did make a little bit of a very, very tricky blow off top here. It does make you wonder, hey, are we having a little bit of re-expansion here? But ultimately, the cycle over here was done, right? And it just basically got exhausted. Over here, that actually makes me wonder whether or not Palantir, and whether or not Nvidia probably has another like 2 or 3x to go. But I do think that this bull trend is really starting to get exhausted here. It probably over the next 12 months or so, it might make up to like maybe like 300, 350 or something like that. But I do wonder whether or not Nvidia bull market seems to be a little bit exhausting here. Now, considering the fact that for Palantir, we almost just had the Bollinger Band expansion all the way to the ground floor, kind of like this green candle over here, right? Initially it was still visible, and now it just get all the way down here because of this big giant green candle over here. So I can see maybe potentially we're kind of getting close to maybe that area. Same here, maybe this green candle, maybe we end up getting punished here sideways for a long time. Or maybe like this green candle over here, then expanding the Bollinger Band all the way down to the ground, right? over here around January 2024, and it just kept going after that. It just kept going for another 5 months, and it went a lot higher. Basically, it ended up like doubling, in price after that, right? So there's no guarantee that Palantir is top. Another one to kind of look at is obviously Bitcoin. And if you look at Bitcoin, you can see that pretty much every single time, whenever you have a bull cycle, over the last 2 cycles, you have Bollinger Band expansion all the way down to the ground. The Bollinger Band expansion that went all the way down to the ground is based on a few candles, especially this one right here, back in May of 2017, as well as this one here back in like December 2020. These really brought the Bollinger Band all the way down to the ground. Over here, how many months of continuation you have? About 7 or 8 months, and then price went from I would say like around 2000 all the way to like 10x, right? Over here, the candle that brought everything up around like maybe 20,000 or so, the cycle ended up happening, finishing around like almost 70,000, right? So just because of bullish band just getting expanded, just because you're getting way outside, doesn't mean the bull trend's over, right? Same thing, RSI in the 80s, in the 90s for a very long time, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that Palantir is done just because you're way outside the upper Bollinger Band, you're way overextended, and that RSI is getting up to 80s. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have to crash down from here. Matter of fact, I actually think that most tops are not blow-off tops. Most tops actually give you a little bit more of an idea that, hey, maybe we're nearing a top, maybe we should be cautious here. There have been a few selected blow-off tops that everybody remembers because they are something to be remembered by. I would say the dot-com bubble was a blow-off top, right? But that's not how most tops are. Most tops are actually a little bit more like a rounded top. And that does give you a little bit of a trend exhaustion kind of sign here. This is a little bit around the top over here. Rounded top, right? That's how most tops are. Even for Bitcoin, everybody remember the blow-up top around 2014 or 2013 as well 2017. But the last top wasn't like the last top was a little bit of a rounded top, and this is actually a little bit more of like a normal market behavior. So I don't know whether or not we're going to get a blow-off top for Bitcoin. I also don't know whether or not we're going to end up getting a blow-off top for Palantir either, because there's really no sign one way or another right now. It just looks like the bull trend is just starting to get extremely impulsive, right? The low bull trend is just starting to kind of expand all the way downwards. So there's really no way for me to kind of tell where we are at right now. Right. So I just want to be very clear that blow-off tops are not really something that you should expect, because most tops are not blow-off tops. Nvidia's last cycle was a blow-off top, right? But the cycle before that was not. And I would argue that most tops are not blow-off tops. Like, these are not blow-off tops. This one was, right? So there's no guarantee that we're going to end up getting blow-off tops. Even with blow-off tops, you actually end up, you don't just crash straight down. You actually end up having a few months of like, a little bit of exhaustive look before you really totally crash down. Even if you're getting a little bit of a very, very top here, you still most likely, if you break down underneath your average, most of the time you still kind of back test some kind of average before you really plummet down, right? I just don't really see anything right now to tell me that Palantir has topped. I just don't really see that. Now, if that's the case, have we seen anything like this before, and where do we go from there? The answer is yes. We've seen something similar like this before. There are a few comparisons. I don't know where things are going to end up with Palantir based on Fibonacci levels, but there are very similar, very impulsive bull trends that has happened in the past. One that is very memorable, and this is going to be like the most bullish moon boy type scenario, is that this is very, very similar to the 2015 through 2017 bull market for Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people are going to argue, hey, valuation matters, Palantir. Anyway, I'm not even worried about all that, because a lot of things is all these valuation things. A lot of times they're kind of based on, how do you say that? Like, based on hindsight. You're basing on what the company's capable of doing based on what your understanding of what the company's capable of doing. They could blow your mind like Nvidia did, right? The issue with this is it just kind of kept going up, but even then it doesn't go up on a straight line. There are a lot of wicks that touches multiple levels, and there's some pretty brutal volatility here for Bitcoin. Like you're talking about these like 30-40% moves up and down on the way up all the way to like thousands or something crazy, right? It went up to from like $200 all the way up to like like almost 20,000. That bull market was crazy. Do I think that Palantir is going to end up doing the same thing? I don't know, right? But certainly looks like there's a lot of similarities here. First of all, you can totally see that once it breaks about the 0.786, it just kept going like crazy. It did have a little bit of resistance here on the previous all-time high, but it didn't really end up, holding for more than just a couple months. It just ended up shooting up like crazy, right? Here, what we're seeing, well, you have price kind of stuck underneath the 0.786 here for about a few months, breakthrough, back test, and it just kind of went higher and higher from there, right? Am I expecting to get some resistance here? I'm going to show you another example where it doesn't go up like this, where it kind of stalls, and where there could be a lot of really crazy shakeouts that could happen, and it could be quite unimaginable. But I'm just showing you like the most bullish scenario. Bitcoin goes all the way up to something ridiculous like the 2.618 over here, like what Bitcoin did, right? For Palantir, if it just ended up going like a straight line like that, it would hit like $500, $600, somewhere around there, right? What is another potential scenario that can happen? Well, another potential scenario that can happen is this. It could be hitting some very strong resistance zone around $71.57, which is going to be the 1.414, right? Why do I say that? Well, do I have a very similar look over here compared to over here? We do, right? Actually, I'm going to get rid of I'm going to add one more average here. It's just going to be 1.136. So if I add that, so you can see what happened with MicroStrategy last time, right? This cycle, a lot of people got really excited about MicroStrategy, really starting around like February or March or so, when price just kind of went parabolic up, right? And they thought that it was going to keep on going up. And next thing you know, it got rejected here at 1.414. We ended up going sideways for about 6 months. Whipsaw in between the two, have these like crazy 30-40% moves up and down for an entire 6 months, right? If you on MicroStrategy leverage, like the 2x or 3x plays, you would have gotten caught here and you would have gotten whipsaw and you would have gotten eaten alive with the decay and all that. You would have been a lot lower now, during this whipsaw over here, right? But the underlying asset, MicroStrategy, didn't care. Bounced between these two Fibonacci levels and just kind of push through and just kind of have continuation, right? But you have to be able to tolerate this kind of volatility. Are we getting close to 1.614 here for Palantir? Yes, we are. Could we end up just wake up out of that and then end up just kind of whipsawing down here like negative 40% move, get closer to 1.136 here around like $45 and just kind of whipsawing before going up higher? That's also a possibility. Do I see that happening in Palantir right now with the momentum that it has? It even has more momentum over here than MicroStrategy did last time, right? But if you're chasing, you'd be purely chasing momentum. I do not know the answer to that. All I know is that this scenario is also possible because MicroStrategy also looked very similar to Palantir during the cycle. But I do not know whether or not Palantir is going to end up getting rejected here. Maybe it gets rejected here at 1.618 and does this whipsaw thing, right? Maybe it gets rejected up higher around 2, right? Maybe it gets rejected around 2.274. Maybe that's the end of the cycle. Maybe it just gets rejected 1.618. That's the end of the cycle. There's no way for anybody to really be able to tell. All I see is that I think that there is some similarities here that it does make me wonder. That's all. The other one is looking at Nvidia. Looking at Nvidia this cycle, what it did is it also got rejected here at 1.614. 1.414. It didn't really go all the way down to the 1.136, unlike what MicroStrategy had done. It actually kind of stopped short of that, right? Maybe got front ran here a little bit, and it just kind of went through, right? And you can see that all these fit levels here actually were respected very well, especially 1.414 was respected very well. And the 2 level over here is also respected very well. And you can see 2.414 also seems to be respected very well right now. We're kind of breaking above that, which is why I think we're going higher with Nvidia. But can it end up hitting the 1.414 just like Nvidia did, and just like MicroStrategy did, and just kind of hover around for like a few months? A lot of brutal chops here before further bullish continuation. That's entirely possible. Or is it going to end up doing what Bitcoin did? It just didn't care. It just wanted to go higher for months and months and months, which is probably not likely, by the way. But if it does, great. Do I care that it does something like this? No. Do I care that it does something like this? No. I probably don't really want to sell Palantir regardless. I think that a lot of people are looking for something like this or something like this to try and re-enter down here in like the 40s. And the issue is when it gets down to the 40s, a lot of people probably won't buy. That's the that's the issue. So I think the greatest pain right now, the max pain for the market, is probably just doing this Bitcoin thing. It just keeps on going up and up and up and getting everybody offsides for a chance they're not able to buy. And by the time when they actually say they give in, like, okay, this is what Palantir does, it's just by the time when it gets up to like the 2.4 and 4, 2.618, when people are actually believing in it, that's when things really kind of crash down, go sideways here for years. And to punish you and to basically you're taking a lot of the valuation gains ahead of time. You're taking years of gains ahead of time, and you might end up getting whipsaw here for years before Palantir is able to really go further up. So we'll see. Is this sustainable? I don't know. Is it possible to get up here? It's possible. Again, I just show you a video example. MicroStrategy, Nvidia, and Bitcoin. And the issue is I don't think anybody knows, and this is coming from somebody who theoretically like guessed right over here back in July 2022, guessed right here again in July 2022, guessed right here around like July 2023, and like did all these like predictions over here, right? I don't know. Nobody knows. I got lucky. I think that anybody who's like selling out of Palantir because price just like way too high are doing it. If there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, you should take profits and you should put money into where you're most comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with it. But I just don't know if you're going to end up making a decision like that. You don't have to trash the stock. You don't have to call irrationality. You don't have to do any of that because you don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows, right? You don't know. Nobody knows. You don't know. Nobody knows. All I can say is that this is a very, very powerful bull trend, and the low Bollinger Band has just started to get to the negatives. And that's generally not how these crazy impulsive bull markets end. And I'm just going to leave it as that. How high is Palantir going to go this cycle? I do not know. I don't know. Like, how high is MicroStrategy going to go? I mean, I just made a video about it. But how high would Palantir go this cycle? I don't know. How high would Nvidia go this cycle? I don't know. I think most likely, if you ask for my opinion, and that's maybe another video for another time, but you ask for my opinion, I think it's probably going to go to maybe like 330 to 350, somewhere around there, if you ask for my opinion. But nobody knows, right? So why am I here to pretend that I know everything? Because I don't know everything. Even if I guess right, even though I've been like more right than most people over the last 2 years on Palantir, I don't know, right? So that's all I'm gonna leave it as. This is not, me like trying to like tell you that like I'm better than everybody else. Here, this is me trying to tell you that nobody knows. I've seen so much crap over the last 2 years on like Palantir charting that I'm just gonna like take a step back and just saying, look, keep an open mind, be prepared for all scenario. I think a blow off top from here is not that likely. I think there's going to be some kind of bullish continuation. I just don't know if it's going to be, whipsaw sideways here for a while before going up higher. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. If I'm wrong, if this is the blow off top, and if we end up crashing from here, then yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to look for some warning sign. What are some of the warning signs that you can look for? Well, you can look at, again, you can look at other charts to see how previously these stocks crash, right? So for example, this rounded top over here, it crashed because it was riding up for a very long time, for almost a year, on bearish divergence with RSI and price going up higher. It just looks like an exhaustive top. Even here, it looks a little bit of an exhaustive top, doesn't it? Even though it has a little bit of a blow off top look to it, even though RSI did make a little bit of a higher high, it just looks a little bit more exhausted, right? And even if you don't time your exit perfectly, it's fine. Like, I don't really think that nobody really sells right off the top. Nobody does that, right? Nobody really sells right off the top, and it's not your job to try to sell off the top. If you see a blow off top, like a Bitcoin blow off top here in 2017, and if you missed the opportunity to sell up here, you could potentially wait for it to kind of break down a certain level and back test and see how it does. If it doesn't react well, or you wait for the back test here, you just sell here, right? You never know how things are going to go. That's the moral of the story, and I'm sticking with it. Um, you can always try and sell the back test of a moving average that is looking like it's weakened and exit that way. I don't know everything, okay? I don't know everything. Matter of fact, I also don't know anything. I'm also trying to learn how to time the top, but I don't think anybody really does it like perfectly. So what can you do is not financial advice. I don't know. I don't really feel like taking profits anytime soon. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna keep monitoring the trend. So if the trend's not telling me anything different is a bull trend, then it can keep going. I'm gonna leave it as that. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.